Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. We always love taking requests for deep dives, and this one came up a lot. Forgiveness, and how it all ties into healing, especially from trauma. So we're going to really get into it with this essay called Healing Hurts, The Forgiveness Factor, which I gotta say, that title alone got me thinking.
Yeah, it really gets at that idea that healing, which we think of as such a good thing, can be a really, really difficult process.
Absolutely. The essay is by Dr. Basil Joseph Pillay. He's a psychologist from South Africa, and what's so interesting is that he brings in his personal experience working with people at the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC, as it's often called.
Right, and the TRC is what makes this essay so fascinating, I think, because Dr. Pillay was providing psychological support to the people who were giving testimony there, witnesses to some truly awful stuff.
The TRC was established after apartheid ended in South Africa. So much trauma to process, right? Years of racial segregation and oppression, and the goal was to find a way forward, but not through punishment.
Exactly. It was more about truth-telling, giving victims a voice, and, the hope was that that would lead to some kind of national healing.
So Dr. Pillay, he goes into this whole experience with certain expectations, but working with these witnesses, it really shifted his perspective.
Oh yeah, his views changed dramatically. He initially thought he'd encounter a lot of broken people, but he found that they were incredibly resilient. These were people who had endured horrific things, but they also had this inner strength, this wisdom that defied expectations.
They weren't defined by what happened to them.
Exactly. And a really key observation Dr. Pillay makes is that the witnesses who showed the most improvement, psychologically speaking, were often the ones who were able to forgive.
Really?
Yeah. And conversely, those who held on to unforgiveness seemed to continue to struggle.
Okay, so then we got to ask, what is forgiveness really? Mm-hmm. And why does it seem to have this powerful connection to healing?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it's important to start by clearing up some of the common misconceptions about forgiveness. It's definitely not about condoning or excusing the harm that was done.
Right. And it doesn't mean you have to forget what happened or suppress the anger and pain you feel.
Exactly.
Dr. Pillay makes a distinction between two types of forgiveness, decisional and emotional. Could you explain a bit more about those?
Yeah, so decisional forgiveness is like making a choice, choosing not to seek revenge, even if you're incredibly angry.
Okay, so it's like an act of the will in a way.
Right. While emotional forgiveness, that's about an actual shift in your feelings towards the person who hurt you.
I see. So with emotional forgiveness, the anger and resentment actually lessen over time.
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is that forgiveness doesn't mean denying the hurt or pretending everything is okay. It's more about acknowledging those difficult emotions, but choosing not to be controlled by them.
Okay, so Dr. Pillay isn't just relying on anecdotal evidence or stories to make these points, right? He also cites research that links unforgiveness to some pretty serious negative health consequences.
Oh, absolutely. There's this one study he mentions that I found fascinating. Researchers found a correlation between unforgiveness and increased levels of cortisol, the stress hormone.
Cortisol, yeah.
Right, and we know that when cortisol levels are chronically elevated, that can contribute to all sorts of problems, like a weakened immune system, cardiovascular issues.
So holding on to all that anger and resentment, it's not just an emotional burden, it can actually manifest physically too.
That's right. And on the flip side, tons of studies have shown that forgiveness can have the opposite effect. Reduce stress, lower blood pressure, even better sleep.
So it's like letting go of the anger, even if it's hard, can actually be good for us physically and mentally. There's a real physiological basis for it.
Exactly. And this isn't just some touchy-feely new age concept. Researchers have actually looked at the neurological aspects of forgiveness using brain imaging techniques.
Really?
Yeah. They've observed that when people engage in acts of forgiveness, specific areas of the brain light up, like the prefrontal cortex, which we know is involved in regulating emotions and decision-making.
So there are actual measurable physiological changes happening in the brain when we forgive.
That's right. But what really brings this whole concept to life is this one story Dr. Pillay shares from his time at the TRC hearings. It's about this woman who lost both her son and her husband to the violence of apartheid. Her story is just so powerful. It really shows just how transformative forgiveness can be, even when someone's faced with unimaginable pain. You see, her husband and son were actually murdered by a police officer, and at the TRC hearing, she comes face to face with this man, the man who destroyed her family.
I can't even imagine the emotions she must have been going through in that moment. Like, what could forgiveness even look like in that kind of situation?
Well, so instead of demanding punishment or yelling or, expressing rage, she asks him to go to the place where her husband's body had been burned and to gather his ashes so she could give him a proper burial.
Wow. That request alone, it speaks volumes about her strength and her capacity for forgiveness.
And it doesn't stop there. She goes on to tell the officer that she still has so much love to give and asks him to come visit her twice a month so she can be like a mother figure to him.
That is just extraordinary. Like, it's almost impossible to grasp that level of compassion after everything she's been through.
Her story really challenges our ideas about what forgiveness is, and what it can do. This wasn't about saying what the officer did was okay. It was about her freeing herself from the bitterness and hatred that could have consumed her.
But it does raise a question, right? Is forgiveness always possible?
Yeah.
What about in situations where the harm is still happening, where there's like a power imbalance between the victim and the offender?
You're right, those are really important points to consider. And Dr. Pillay doesn't shy away from those tougher aspects of forgiveness in his essay. He talks specifically about situations like abusive relationships where forgiveness can seem impossible or even unwise.
Yeah, it's hard to even think about forgiveness when someone's actively being hurt.
Absolutely. And Dr. Pillay emphasizes that, forgiveness shouldn't be used to justify or condone abuse or to put someone in a dangerous situation. In those cases, safety and self-protection have to come first.
So it's not about being passive or accepting harmful behavior. Forgiveness isn't a free pass for the person who caused harm.
Definitely not. And it's crucial to remember that forgiveness is a process. It's not like a switch you can just turn on. It takes time, and it may involve working through a lot of pain, anger, confusion.
What about those times when the person who caused the harm doesn't even acknowledge what they did or show any remorse? Can you really forgive someone who's not asking for forgiveness?
That's a really tough one. And it's where that distinction between decisional and emotional forgiveness becomes especially important. You might be able to consciously decide to let go of the anger and resentment, even if they haven't apologized or admitted they did anything wrong.
So you're choosing to free yourself from those negative emotions, whether the other person changes or not.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean you have to condone their behavior or reconcile with them. It's about finding a way to move forward without being defined by anger and bitterness.
Dr. Pillay also talks about self-forgiveness, which, sometimes that feels even harder than forgiving other people.
Oh, absolutely. We can be so hard on ourselves, holding on to guilt and shame for past mistakes long after others have moved on.
Oh yeah, I've definitely been there. It's easy to get stuck in that cycle of self-blame and regret.
Learning to be kind to ourselves, to see our flaws without letting them define us, that's a huge part of healing and growth.
It's like recognizing that we're all works in progress. We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them and keep moving forward.
And that's where forgiveness comes in, towards ourselves and others. It allows us to let go of the past and be present, to move forward with hope.
It's been really interesting talking about how challenging forgiveness can be, especially in those complex situations where there's ongoing harm, or the person who hurt you isn't sorry, or when you need to forgive yourself. But I think it's important to remember that even when it's tough, forgiveness can be so liberating.
Absolutely. It's such a powerful idea that even when we've suffered a lot, we still have the capacity to choose forgiveness. It really speaks to how resilient we are as humans.
Like you're taking back your power by not letting those negative experiences define you. You're choosing to break free from that cycle of pain and resentment.
Exactly. And in doing that, you open up space for healing, for growth, even for connection.
Makes me think back to that story about the woman at the TRC hearing. Her forgiveness, it didn't erase the pain of losing her loved ones, but it did help her find a way to move forward without being consumed by all that anger and bitterness.
And, maybe her forgiveness even had an effect on the man who caused her so much pain. We can't know for sure, but there's always that possibility.
It reminds us that forgiveness can have these ripple effects that we might never fully understand. It's not just about the individuals involved. It can impact families, communities, even future generations.
It's like that saying, people hurt people, but healed people heal people. Forgiveness has the potential to stop those cycles of pain and help create a more compassionate and just world.
It's like that idea we were just talking about, that forgiveness creates these ripples that go outward. It's not just the people involved. It makes me think about the concept of Ubuntu, which Dr. Pillay mentions in the essay.
Ubuntu. It's a Nguni Bantu term, often translated as humanity towards others, but it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah, like what does it actually mean?
It's about recognizing that everything is connected. We're all part of this larger web of humanity.
I've heard that phrase, no man is an island. Seems like Ubuntu's kind of getting at that same idea, like what we do affects others and what they do affects us.
Exactly. Ubuntu recognizes that interconnectedness. It's about compassion, empathy, responsibility for each other, for the whole community.
So then how does Ubuntu connect to forgiveness?
Well, think about it. If we're all connected, part of one big whole, hurting someone else is like hurting ourselves, right? So from an Ubuntu perspective, forgiveness is how we restore balance, how we repair those tears in the fabric of our community.
It's not just about the victim and the offender then, it's about the whole community healing.
Right. And Desmond Tutu, he was so crucial to the TRC. He really championed Ubuntu and how it relates to forgiveness. He saw it as essential for South Africa moving on from apartheid.
Like without forgiveness, the violence and revenge would just keep going. There'd be no hope for peace or justice.
Yeah, and I think that message is relevant beyond South Africa. Any conflict between people, communities, countries even, forgiveness is key to breaking those cycles of violence and creating a more harmonious world.
Recognizing our shared humanity, even with those who hurt us. Building bridges, not walls.
Exactly. Ubuntu is such a powerful guide for that, reminding us we're connected, that even the smallest actions have ripple effects.
So even if it's hard to forgive someone personally because of the pain they caused, we can still act from that Ubuntu place, contributing to healing in our community and the world in whatever way we can.
Absolutely. Kindness, compassion, understanding, even small acts can have a big impact, moving us toward a more just, more compassionate world. A world where forgiveness isn't just an idea, but something we actually do.
This whole deep dive, it's been eye-opening. Forgiveness from so many angles. Psychology, social aspects, even neuroscience.
Yeah, and we've seen even when it's incredibly difficult, forgiveness can be this huge force for healing, change, growth, for individuals, for society as a whole.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. And hopefully it's got you listening, thinking too. Maybe you're dealing with something from the past. Maybe you're struggling to forgive yourself.
Or maybe you just wanted to learn more about forgiveness and how it can make the world a better place.
Whatever brought you here, we hope you've come away with a deeper understanding of this complex idea.
And maybe even some renewed hope.
As we wrap up, we want to leave you with a question. After learning all this about forgiveness, what's one small step you can take today towards forgiving someone or even yourself?
Powerful question. One worth really considering.
And remember, forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. Every step towards compassion, toward understanding, brings us closer to a more healed and whole world.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the forgiveness factor. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, keep diving deep.